Hey guys, looks like I'm live. I think I'm getting the hang of this thing now. Maybe, maybe not. So I'm here tonight with you all, whomever that might be, with my blue hands. Got a new pair of pants. Do you guys ever do this? I got a new pair of blue jeans, and every time I touch them, it kind of rubs off on my hands. So I noticed today that I thought maybe perhaps I had lost all circulation in my fingers, even though I could actually feel my fingers because they were blue and the nails were blue and everything. So I had a momentary freak out, but then I realized it's because of my new pants. Anywho, so my hands match my glasses because they're blue. So there's that coordination. Anywho, so for those of you joining me for the first time, my name is Sunny Brigham. I am a board-certified nutrition specialist, a clinical nutritionist, and I do have a master's of science in clinical nutrition. It is Tuesday night. Even though it was a long weekend, it kind of feels like Monday, and I have a feeling that every day this week is going to feel like Monday. But it is Tuesday, and so every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Time, I go live on Facebook to discuss a topic of a new blog that comes out on the prior Monday. And so yesterday, what was the blog about? Oh, is fruit really bad? So that is what we are going to chat about tonight. Sorry, I keep stepping on something and it's annoying me. All right. Rub my hands on my blue pants, make them more bluer. Okay, so I get this question a lot, and I actually have a couple of colleagues that we are all kind of in disagreement on about whether fruit is bad, whether fruit's okay to consume, should there be a limit on fruit, and then I see this question a lot on the internet, should I reduce my fruit? Should I not eat my fruit? And I hear a lot of people say, well, sugar is sugar, so, you should stop eating fruit if you're trying to reduce your sugar intake. And so it's not as simple as sugar is sugar. So we're going to kind of break this down. We'll talk a little bit about the difference between fructose and glucose, and I'll talk about what those terms are. And then we'll determine, is fruit really bad? And then I'll give you my own little guidelines on it and some tips and tricks and things like that. So I have put the blog there in the header section. So if you haven't read it yet, I encourage you to click on it and take a read, not while I'm talking, maybe after I'm talking. And if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comment section and I will be more than happy to answer them as I see them pop up or at the end of the broadcast. I'm really hungry. I don't know about you guys, but I just got super hungry. Might be all the fruit we're talking about. Okay, so let's see, where should I start in this blog? Okay, so let's kind of talk about the difference between fructose and glucose. So glucose they're both disaccharides, meaning that they are single units of sugar in the body. Every time we consume a carbohydrate, the body goes through this amazing process of breaking this carbohydrate down into glucose. It is glucose, so that we can utilize it in the energy production process. That is why people who eat before they go work out have a little more energy. That's why when we're feeling a little tired in the afternoon, if we have a little sugar or we have a piece of toast or we have an apple or we have something like that, it gives us a little pick-me-up. Or if we just eat, it gives us a little pick-me-up. So you've got the glucose in the body. So all carbs break down to glucose, regardless if they're refined, good, bad, otherwise. So all carbohydrates break down to glucose in the body. And glucose is what we use to create energy. If we have an excess of energy, meaning that we've already got plenty of energy at that moment, we overate, or we do not need that energy at that time, what we do is we store the rest of it. We store some of it in the liver, we store a lot of it in our muscles, so that when we are in a period where we actually need more energy, we can kind of signal those areas and say, hey, we're feeling a little low on energy. Can you go ahead and reverse engineer that whole process that you did to store that glucose and go ahead and spit it back out so we can start creating some energy? So that is glucose in a nutshell. And so When it becomes good and bad is when you have like a refined carbohydrate, or you have a refined food in general, something processed. It doesn't have a lot of fiber. It doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. And so fiber is really what slows down the digestion and absorption in the body. And so when we eat, let's say, a piece of white bread that is highly processed, it breaks down very quickly in the body. There's not a whole lot of fiber in it. So our glucose goes up, and then it drops right back off pretty quickly. And so we'll get this high spike of energy, and then it'll kind of come back down. We'll have a massive amount of glucose in the blood at that time, and this is where it can be problematic for diabetics. So we'll get a massive amount of glucose in the blood at that time. Maybe the pancreas can't keep up with insulin production, or maybe we just have too much. Our storage sites are full because we don't exercise as much. And so the body says, well, okay, well, we don't need it. Storage sites are full. Let's go ahead and crank this sucker out as triglycerides, and we're going to store it as fat. Now, take that same scenario and make it, a piece of 100% whole wheat or whole grain bread, something like Ezekiel bread. That has a lot of fiber in it. It's all sprouted whole grains. It is going to break down very slowly in the body, which means we're going to stay fuller for longer. We're not going to have the massive spike and the drop off. You're going to kind of see a little ebb and then a little flow. The pancreas will be able to keep up with the insulin production. We'll be able to utilize what we need for energy. We won't feel so hungry, within an hour or two afterwards. And so that's where glucose kind of comes in, and why it's important to eat, whole grains or less refined or processed foods. And I'm trying to remember where the heck I was going with all of this and how it relates to fructose, so you'll have to forgive me for a moment. I knew I had a point. So glucose is a disaccharide, and fructose, which is fruit sugar, fructose is also a disaccharide. And so it plays almost the same role in the body that glucose does, except that we utilize the liver to actually break down fructose. So we don't utilize the liver to break down glucose, but we do utilize it to break down fructose. So that's important to remember as we move forward and start talking about things. So let's talk about the good parts of fruit, right? So fruit contains something called polyphenols. Sorry, my dog is drinking very loudly. She doesn't know how to drink quietly, apparently. So polyphenols are basically just super, super potent nutrients. You can find those in vegetables. You can find them in all plant products, but you're going to find them in high concentrations in fruit. Polyphenols basically is what helps the body fight disease. A very popular polyphenol that most people might know is resveratrol. That one became really popular a couple years ago. It is still a very good polyphenol to have, but we particularly find a lot of polyphenols in fruits, tea, and coffee. So those are the three main places. I felt like I was a bunny for a minute, a three-eared bunny. The three main places that you're going to find polyphenols. There are, like I said, there are polyphenols in vegetables. They're just not as abundant in the fruit, the tea, and the coffee. Soy, legumes, so all plants, that's why we should eat mostly plants, will have polyphenols. Polyphenols are not well metabolized. And what that means is we don't absorb as much as we take in. If you have digestive issues, you're definitely not absorbing as much as you take in. And so maintaining a constant intake of polyphenols is important to the body so that you can continue to fight off any type of disease, whether that's virus, bacteria, it doesn't matter. So a continued intake of polyphenols. Fruit is very high in polyphenols, so that's really important. Usually 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day is going to get you adequate intake of polyphenols. The other good part of fruit is it contains fiber. So like we just talked about with glucose, it contains, as long as it's not a refined carbohydrate, as long as they're quality carbohydrates, the higher in fiber that you have, the slower digestion occurs, which means that you're going to feel fuller for longer. You're not going to have an intense spike in any type of serum glucose or anything like that. And so fruit also contains an abundance of fiber. We need about 25 to 35 grams of fiber a day. Most Americans do not get that. We're probably hanging around anywhere between 11 to 19 grams of fiber a day, and we really need between 25 and 35. Fiber is really good, not only because it slows digestion, but it also binds to excess cholesterol and helps excrete it in the feces. So if you're battling some increased elevated cholesterol, whether that's total cholesterol, triglycerides, LDL, doesn't matter, definitely pay attention to your fiber intake and see how much you're getting, because that's going to help lower your cholesterol levels. So fruit is high in fiber. An apple contains about 4 grams of fiber. Let's say a cup of raspberries has 8 grams of fiber in it. And so you need 25 to 35 grams a day. If you're eating a cup of raspberries, that's 8 grams of fiber right there, on top of extra fiber that you get throughout the day. So fruit is really high in polyphenols and fiber. So those are really good aspects of fruit. Fruit provides us with energy. So it's kind of like what I just talked about with glucose. So fruit is a great source of energy. It does have fructose in it. It is comprised of carbohydrates, so it is going to feed into our energy production cycle. For individuals that feel that they need to eat before they go to the gymnasium and do whatever type of workout they are into that day, if you are the type that does want to eat or feels that they need to eat, I typically recommend a piece of fruit probably 45-ish minutes before you go, whether that's an apple, it can be a banana, and then I'll tell you to pair it with a little tiny bit of protein, a little tiny bit of fat, only to slow the digestion a little bit more so that when you get halfway through your workout, you're not burnt out. You got a little fuel in the reserve tank to kind of get you through the rest of it. And you can do that with, if you're having an apple, maybe a tablespoon of almond butter or peanut butter. You can take an ounce of nuts. An ounce is about the size of the palm of your hand. So if you scoop it up and that covers the palm of your hand, that's about an ounce of nuts. So you can pop those bad boys in your mouth and have your apple as you drive to the gym. So fruits are packed with polyphenols, packed with fiber, and help us with energy. There's my 3-year-old bunny again. So fructose, that is fruit sugar. So fructose is needed to utilize the storage form of energy in the body. And this is where I was going with the glucose. I remember now. So when we break down glucose and we don't need it at that moment, we store it in the form, it's called glycogen. So we store it in the liver and we store it in the muscles. When we're low on energy, typically we will go to the liver first in order to, like I said, reverse engineer that process so that we can start utilizing the glycogen, which is the storage form of glucose, into the energy production in the body so that we can crank out some energy and not feel so tired again. We actually need fructose to take out that storage form of energy in the liver and start to utilize it. And so the downside to this is that there is quite a few people that have something called fructose intolerance. And what that means is that their body can't actually metabolize fructose. It doesn't break it down. And so sometimes they'll have a little bit of problem metabolizing any type of storage form of glucose from the liver because we need fructose for that. So fructose is important for metabolizing the storage form of energy from the liver. And that is where it will go first. Like I said, we store glucose in the liver and the muscles. It's going to hit the liver first. It's going to pull back from the liver first. So if we're feeling low, it's going to go to the liver first versus the muscles. So like I said, fruit contains polyphenols. So does coffee and tea, but let's focus on the fruit here since that's what this is about tonight. Fiber provides us with energy, and it helps to draw out, we'll say, the storage form of energy from the liver. So we need fructose for that. Okay, so the last one I have on the good, and this is typically where I tend to annoy people or tick people off, I guess. So fructose or fruit sugar or fruit consumption, specifically fruit consumption. So when we talk about fructose, we're not talking about high fructose corn syrup. We're not talking about corn syrup in general. We're not talking about fruit juices. We are talking specifically about eating an entire piece of fruit. So fruit consumption is perfectly okay if you're a diabetic. And on the blog, I shared a little story. I had an individual that came to me because she had elevated A1C levels, which is one of the main markers that will tell you if you have diabetes or not. They utilize glucose, but people can have, ups and downs in your glucose all the time. But your A1C takes about 45 to 60 days to kind of refresh and recycle. So this individual came to me because this person had an elevated A1C level. This person was a little distraught because they really wanted to not go on diabetic medication. They wanted to change their diet and their lifestyle and lose a little bit of weight. This individual had already done some of that on their own. They had lost some weight, but they hadn't really seen a big budge in their A1C levels. And so when we did the dietary assessment and I noticed this person was not eating any fruit, I had asked the question of why not. And this person told me that while they're diabetic, they can't have fruit because it has sugar in it. And that is 100% completely false. So I got this person to start consuming 2 pieces of fruit a day because it's high in polyphenols, it's high in fiber, it provides us with energy. And we needed to utilize the storage form of glucose from the liver. So when this person added 2 pieces of fruit a day, 2 months went by, they got their labs redrawn, A1C dropped because they found that they were going for fruit as a snack instead of a packaged food, a packaged product. So even the healthiest foods can be packaged by way of, crackers and things like that. And when they're gone from their original form, they're not as healthy as the original version. And so just by focusing on adding fruit as a snack, they got their A1C levels down. So yes, you can absolutely enjoy fruit as a snack as a diabetic. So that's what we talked about with fruit. Oh, hi, Darcy. Colby said, tuned in late, but we love fruit, especially berries. Better to get our fiber from fruit than from a bowl of colon blow for sure. Interesting. I don't know what colon blow is. Is it a newfound product that they have at the Kroger I can pick up? I'll have to check that out. Okay, so let's talk about the downsides of fruit. So we already talked about the upsides, that it's packed with polyphenols, tons of fiber, gives us energy. We need fructose to pull out the storage form of glucose, glycogen from the liver in order to utilize energy when we're in periods of, periods of possibly not eating as much. And as a diabetic, you can use, you can consume fruit. They're okay. Okay, so let's talk about bad. So the bad, there's really only 2. And they're not like bad. They're not like you can never have fruit because these are so bad. Did you like my robot there? So they're not like bad, like no bad. They're kind of like, maybe they're a little bad. So the first one that I have listed is that fructose, unlike glucose, is processed in the liver. I mentioned that earlier. So if you are an individual that has been diagnosed with fatty liver or possibly has, a backed up liver, a good sign of having a backed up liver is inability to lose weight, hormone imbalances, those sorts of things. So there's a lot of kind of signs and symptoms that you have a backed up liver. And so if you have a backed up liver, fructose can actually cause that to make it a little worse, I guess, in layman's terms. So if your liver's not doing so great, you could, if everything else in your diet is like perfect, you could toy around with removing fruit or sticking to the lower sugar fruits and seeing how that does. But typically most people that have gotten to the stage where they have fatty liver, either it's a genetic condition or their diet is just overall not amazing, or they're a super stressed out individual because cortisol can actually cause fatty liver. So, and this is why I say it's not like a bad, like you can't have this bad. It's like, maybe you should, give it just a half of a thought on maybe cutting back your fruit intake. So if you have fatty liver, and let's say you're eating like 4 or 5 pieces of fruit a day, and probably pump the brakes a little bit and maybe drop back to like 1 to 2, maybe 3 servings of fruit tops. But aside from that, I probably wouldn't tell somebody to like take it out unless their liver is pretty bad, and we're really trying to kind of shock the body and get everything functioning. But that's usually only a short period of time, and those are extreme cases. The other one that I have listed, and it's not really a bad either, but I put it there, is sometimes fruit can spike sugar cravings in people. It does it for me. It doesn't do it for everybody. If I cut fruit 100% from my diet, I will have 0 sugar cravings, like none, like no cupcakes, cookies, dark chocolate, nothing. I will want none of it, and I don't even want fruit either. So if I add fruit in, I will notice that I will start to crave other sugary type foods as well. I will need a sliver of dark chocolate after I eat a meal. I will walk past a cupcake case and press my face against it and start licking the window because I feel like maybe I'll taste it through the glass or something. The shop owners don't really appreciate that. But I notice if I cut it out, I don't have as many sugar cravings. So that's something that you can toy with as well. If you're really battling sugar cravings and you feel like you're kind of having this internal struggle with sugar and how much you can eat, and you feel like you're cutting out, all these things out, but you're still having these intense cravings, that's something that you can toy with as well. It doesn't work for everybody. We're not all the same, but that's how it works for me. So if I cut out fruit, I will have no more sugar cravings whatsoever. If I add fruit back in, I will start to have some sugar cravings. So again, not really bad because we want fruit, right? We want the good polyphenols. I could drink coffee all day, but I don't think that's the best thing for me. So I need to get my polyphenols from somewhere else. I do drink a lot of tea, or I try to, but in the summertime when it's really hot, it's hard to drink a lot of hot tea. And I'm not a big fan of cold tea. So that's really it. So the goods is high in fiber, packed with polyphenols, gives us some energy, helps to pull out the storage form of energy from the liver so that we can utilize it in the body. And if you're a diabetic, you can have fruit. So the bads, like I said, they're not super bad. They're not, just kind of like a little bit of bad, like something that you would get grounded for, but not like get your car taken away. So if you have, fatty liver, you may want to toy around with pulling back on the fruit. And then if you're having some intense sugar cravings that you just can't kind of get a handle on, you can think about, pulling back on your fruit or only sticking to lower sugar fruits, and seeing how your body handles that. So, and I'm going to tell you a secret. I used a term in my blog, and I have to look it up every time. And I think it's from Reddit. It's TLDR. Oh, I remember. It says, so it stands for too long, didn't read. So it's just kind of like the summary. And maybe I threw it in there because I'm getting old and I want to feel young and hip. I don't know. But I think it's funny that I have to literally look up that term every time because I always forget what it means. It's like one of the few ones. Anyway, so the TLDR is that fruit is perfectly fine in moderation. Vegetable consumption should always exceed fruit consumption. So if you're consuming 2 pieces of fruit today or 2 servings of fruit, you should have more vegetables than 2 servings of fruit. So if you're having 2 servings of fruit, try to have 4 servings of vegetable. Realistically, we need a lot more vegetables than that, but we need more vegetables than fruit. So if you're consuming fruit, make sure you're also consuming vegetables. Moderation, I would say, is 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. A serving is a medium apple, a half a cup of berries, half of a large grapefruit, a medium-sized banana. I certainly don't want anybody to go out and start measuring their fruit. Just kind of eyeball it, have an apple, have a pear, it doesn't matter, but eat the fruit. It's really good. It's really healthy for you. And sugar is not sugar is not sugar. I hate when I hear people say, well, sugar is sugar. Sugar is not sugar. It's not sugar.
Sugar, sugar.
Aw, did you just call me sugar, sugar? That's so sweet. Stop it. So high fructose corn syrup is not the same as corn syrup. It's not the same as glucose. It's not the same as sucrose. It's not the same as fructose. So sugar is not sugar is not sugar. We metabolize them all slightly differently in the body. Fructose uses the liver. That's kind of the important piece with fructose. So make sure that you consume more vegetables than fruit. 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day. And if you're a little concerned, you can always stick to the low sugar fruits. So low sugar fruits are really the berries, bananas, pineapples, mangoes, any type of tropical fruit. Those are all going to be high sugar fruits. I typically say have 1 high sugar fruit a day. The other fruits should be medium to low sugar fruits. And that is it. If you check out my blog, there's a couple of apples doing some exercises. It's pretty rad. And that is it. I don't see any questions, which is amazing, which means that you guys know everything and you're eating your 2 to 3 servings of fruit a day with loads of vegetables. So that's it for tonight. Next week, the blog that will come out on Monday is all about bone health. So bone health is not just important for women, it's very important for men as well. And so the blog will come out Monday. Next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central, I will be here and we'll talk all about bone health. And I'll answer your questions. So if you guys have any questions that you didn't want to post live, you can type them below in the comments and I will go ahead and answer those post live. I got to come up with a better term for that. It's got to be something neat I can use. So after the live is over, I will answer your questions. And if you are watching this, later tonight or tomorrow, you can go ahead and post your questions and I will answer them as well. Thank you for joining me all, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.